Good morning, everyone.
Hello, hello.
It's so nice to see so many of you ready to go on first up on a Monday morning.
Yay.
Lillian,
Amazing.
you're on mute. I'm not sure if you're trying to speak to us or not, but you're on mute. You might just be chatting to the person next to you. I'm not sure. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Now, because we're not yet on 10, people will continue joining us, and we won't actually get started in the content until we're right on 10 o'clock. But I'll start introducing myself and saying hello to all of you. So my name is Stacey DeCalmer, and I manage sector development at QCOS, or the Queensland Council of Social Service, as you may know us, and we're the peak body for community services in Queensland. So we host a lot of different sector development type information sharing events for the community services sector. It's been really fantastic to see the amount of you who are wanting to get online and learn a little more about this particular topic, hosting good money conversations. We know that this is something that many of you on the front line are now doing more and more in your work, even if you're in an organisation that hasn't historically actually delivered any type of money services. Cost of living is something that's now affecting many of us, those in the workforce, as well as the service users that we're encountering through our frontline work. So this is absolutely a topic that is relevant to increasingly more and more of us. And we've got Tanga here this morning who's going to share some really practical, insightful information about how it is that we engage in money conversations, how we host ourselves when we're having money conversations, and what different beliefs and feelings we bring to the conversation, and how we can really have those conversations in an empathetic and useful way for our service users. So really being prepared to have those conversations and being on the front foot. So I'm going to hand over to Tanga in just a minute. I wanted to remind you that you're going to get a post-event email after this session with the slides and some of the resources that we talk about. So please don't feel like you need to write everything down that you're seeing on the screen. We will absolutely be distributing some information after this, including the recording. So you will be getting that from us this week. Now, the other thing I'd like to do is acknowledge that I'm on the land of the Yagara and Turrbal people. I'm in West End in Brisbane. I'd like to pay my respect to their elders past and present and acknowledge their continuing connection to this place and thank them for the care of this land over many, many years for their families. And I would like to extend that acknowledgement to any First Nations people on the line, and of course, acknowledging the custodians of the land that you're all from today. Whenever we have these online sessions, it's really nice to see the breadth of the footprint of Queensland. We get people online who are joining us from all different corners of Queensland. So if you'd like to acknowledge the country that you're on, I encourage you to do that in the chat. Okay, now, if you've got questions for the session, really happy for you to pop them in the chat. And we will get to them at some point, or if we don't have time to get to all of your questions, I've already spoken to Tanga about we'll have an opportunity to compile some answers and get them out to you. So even if we are running out of time, really happy for you to be popping those questions in the chat. Okay, that's enough from me. Tanga, I'm going to hand over to you, let you introduce yourself to the group, and enjoy, everyone. Some really fantastic information coming your way.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stacey. Thank you, QCOS, for this amazing opportunity and the space for everyone that's coming in as well. Oh, I can see someone I know. Hi, Kelly. My name is Tanga. I'll call myself the Money Emotional Intelligence Coach. Now, what I'll do is let me quickly, rather than talk about myself, let me just quickly share a screen that gives you a little bit of a snapshot. Because what I'm really wanting to do is spend a bit more time on the actual subject itself. So at the moment, I'm working in my own private practice as a certified money, life and business coach. And I'm also what we call a trauma-informed money, trauma of money practitioner and facilitator. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. I've got a list of things that I've been doing there, but the pictures really, I think, show the amount of work that I've done in community. So I was a member of the Financial Literacy Action Group in the Logan area, where we delivered a lot of programs to community services. My background is financial counselling. But what I'll do is I'll draw your attention to this bottom thing here, which is my lived experience. That is the core of my wisdom. That's what drives me to do the work that I do. And at the age of 39, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And this was, you would be surprised that actually I'd been working in the banking industry and a mortgage broker for 15 years before that. You'd be surprised that we lost everything. We lost everything. And I'll share a little bit about that journey as we go through and share some of this education piece as well. But what I'd like to do firstly is also acknowledge the lands in which I'm coming to you from, which is the Turrbal people, the Jagera and the Turrbal peoples as the traditional custodians of Meanjin. So I've just moved to this area as well. But I also acknowledge that as a visitor to this land of the last 35 years from New Zealand, I acknowledge my responsibility to return to this land all that I have extracted, all that myself and my family have benefited from this land. We commit to returning back to this land better, more nourished than when we first arrived as well. So I just want to firstly acknowledge everyone coming in here. Amazing. Please drop in there in the chat where you're dropping in from, and also what agency you're joining us from. I really like to get a good spread of the people that we're talking to, of the different agencies and the people you work with as well. And as Stacey mentioned, I actually, let me stop sharing my screen. I have to keep reminding myself to do this. I'm good at money coaching, but sometimes I'm not the best. It's not my zone of genius in technology. So lucky I've got some good help with me. So I guess what we wanted to do here is really bring a different approach to money and money conversations. And we do that around the space. We've only got a couple of hours, and I say only. And the reason why I'm going to apologise up front, a lot of it is going to be PowerPoint presentations, but only because, as you might have gathered, I tend to go off on a tangent, and it's important that I deliver what we need to get in this condensed time. What I would invite you to do is to keep in contact after, because this is just opening. This is just a little opening now where we get to look at different things together and look at this view of money as a supporting service. All right. So I'm going to go ahead now and share the rest of this screen. And I've got some great help from Stacey and Maria to monitor the chat. All right, let's go, Tanga. All right, so let's just look at the overview for the time that we have together. We're approaching money and money conversations from a trauma-informed approach. And what we're going to do is just some really basic 101 stuff on trauma. But through the faculty of the trauma of money, which is where I'm certified to present this information, there is researched 6 significant systemic systems of trauma that we're going to go through and explain through our time together. And we're going to talk about how that links in with our nervous system and some basics around the window of regulations and what that means as well. Now, if some of this information actually resonates with you and you've done some work on this stuff as well, I would encourage you just to contribute where you can. So we're going to talk about how that's all linked to our brain. And we're also going to be talking about ways that we can develop that skill of co-regulating when the topics around money comes up. All right. And we're also going to do a very quick cover over financial disorders and what they might look like. The biggest thing that I'm excited to be doing is in the second half of our time together is we're going to be, just looking at the ways that we can resource ourselves and resource our clients as well when it comes to these types of conversations. All right. So I mentioned before that this information is from the Faculty of the Trauma of Money, and I can also share a link for those studies if you're interested. What we're not covering is you're not going to walk out of here with, as a financial capabilities worker or financial counselor or an advisor or anything like that. We acknowledge that you're here as a support worker in whatever agency or capacity that you are. But we also know that money is often something it's in there somewhere. And so what we want to do is create a space where you are able to really go into those conversations with firstly, in a co-regulating space where you can keep yourself safe and also keep our clients safe as well. How's this all landing for you so far? Right. Okay, let's go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this exercise of holding space. And, we know that we come to these spaces with stuff. Even today, stuff on our minds. We were talking about, the Optus situation last week. Stuff happens. So, and we're often feeling some kind of way because of that stuff that's happening. So we're going to do a little exercise that helps you to park these thoughts, feelings, and emotions that could be blocking you from being present, fully present in today's session. All right. And so we call this the container exercise. All right. And you're welcome to close your eyes if it's safe for you to do this. Place your feet, if it's available to you, on the ground, and visualize a container. Right, a container that could be a treasure box. I like to visualize a boat. Some of my clients might have a cloud. It doesn't necessarily have to have a lid on it. There's a little genie bottle here. Just something where you can park things in. And maybe it could even be stuff that might be triggering because of this topic around money. So as we picture this container, we visualize dropping any to-dos into this container, any expectations that you might have to do some work on this list. We invite you to plant in there anything that you think might be blocking you from being fully present today, and notice how it feels, knowing these thoughts, feelings, and emotions are parked in this container. Now, it's important to realize we're not denying these emotions and thoughts and feelings, and you're going to get time to process these. And you're going to get time to process them with a supervisor, however your agency works in terms of support services. You might do some self-reflection as well through journaling, whatever works well for you. Maybe you have a good friend you can share with, a partner or a senior prac that you can, pop in an appointment and just share some of these things with you, for you as well. Do you need a lock? Do you need to put a little bow on it? Where would you like to place that container while we're in this space together? Could it be right next to you, on your desk? I like the boat because I like to send that boat out, and we're creating space between us and that container. Short term, but it allows us to just drop in today's session. What I'd invite you to do is drop in the chat what container works for you. And let's take a little breath. Fill up those lungs. Count 3, hold it there. There you go. I hope you can hear my birds outside. And as I invite you to return to the space, let's just notice 5 things around on your desk as we reorient into the space. And I invite you to just look over your right shoulder to the back of the room, knowing that there's no tiger about to jump on you. Or just turn to the front and then over the left shoulder. And the practice we're doing here, I'm going to explain a little bit more around why, particularly when it comes to a topic like money, we like to start with a nice grounding exercise. How are we going in the chat? Okay. Oh, we've got some Harvey Bay. Yeah, you can be down on the Gold Coast. Oh, you had some trouble with the let's big. All right. What containers did you think of during that time? What worked for you? Clear glass container, nice shape, and the thoughts, tasks were zipping around like lights, but in a nice, happy, friendly way. Love it. Love it. Treasure chest, yes. Yeah, I have a lot of clients that do this. And, you know, some people have actually asked me, you know, in practice, because when we're in this space, let's stop sharing, Tanga. When we're in this space, sometimes we don't introduce some of these practices, but I do see this starting to be integrated a little bit more around the mind-body connection when it comes to co-regulating. Pressure, is that a pressure canner? Amazing. Love it, love it. Keep them coming, keep them coming. Okay. All right. Going back to share screen. Let's put all hands in. People, we're going to go through a little group agreement. All hands in. A virtual all hands in. Let's agree as a collective here that we agree to come to this space. We know that we all come with different views, experiences, and perspectives on money. And we honour that everyone has, you know, a voice in this space. And all voices matter, all perspectives matter, and we support each other. We also acknowledge that if anything comes up for you today that could be triggering, we commit to our self-agency and we commit to taking notice of those thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And, you know, utilise that vessel, utilise the container that we've created just now. And, you know, you can reach out with someone afterwards. And I'm going to have some contact information in the information that's shared afterwards as well. Okay, here's another interesting one that can also bring up a few things, is to understand and be aware of our own proximity to wealth. Being aware that our own access to financial resources, whether we have a lot of money or just enough or just a little, you know, we understand it's important that we come to the space knowing that there is different situations and different positions, financial positions that we are working with people. And we practice mindful observing, confidentiality, and we acknowledge our right to pass. What does that mean? That means if you just want to be an observer, that's all good as well. You know, often when we're taking in a lot of information and, you know, some people like to share openly and freely. I would be one of these people that would share openly and freely. But in my culture, I've always learned that you've got to sit back and allow everyone else to go first. And so we understand that there is a right to take a pass and observe, but also if you feel that you have something that you want to contribute, however that turns up, I'm going to explain why that's a key piece of us having voice. Okay. I feel like I'm actually going through this really quickly. So if there's any questions or anything, Stacey, that I might be missing here, please feel free to just go, whoa up, slow up there, Tanga. We've got
I'll let
some
you know if
reflections.
anything comes up in the chat, Tanga.
Excellent, thank you. I have this FOMO thing, fear of missing out. All right, so what we're going to do here, like I've mentioned before, a lot of it is from the faculty of the trauma of money, but we're not going to be covering all aspects. So it comes back to understanding that we are coming in from a place even before a money conversation happens. Does that make sense? So our approach when it comes to money through the faculty is the focus that we are working to decrease shame and increase discernment. I'm going to go through and explain a little bit more detail what that means. So, you know, when we look at these two layers, often it's very common for financial literacy, as we've known it, to be driven with the idea that if you do money this way, you're good, and if you do money that way, you're bad. Which out of that approach often comes a lot of shame. So when we approach this from a different view, it's amazing how much freer and open both our clients and ourselves are with having that conversation around money. So we understand and we also appreciate that there are multiple worldviews about money and wealth, and it doesn't have to be the dominant culture worldview only. So, you know, that's a really interesting piece. We'll go into that in a lot more detail as well. What I wanted to do as well is just to put some context of what I mentioned before. Now, please don't be overwhelmed with this. I just wanted you to get...
Just until my
Is that all right? Okay. I just wanted to give you some context as to what we're focusing on today. Now, this plan that we work with clients, for me, in the profession that I do, covers the whole range, right from the beginning, right through to the financial budget, all of those types of things. Often, the budgeting is in steps 4 and 5. Can you believe this? We don't even go into that space yet. We spend a lot of time initially in number 1, and that's where we're going to be focusing on today, which is the window of regulation phase. This is the piece that is linked very much to our narratives, our scripts, money disorders. When we get an understanding on what that means, you really do appreciate how it's actually impossible to even talk to someone around a budget without going through the window of regulation phase first. How is that landing with some people? I know I've got a few of my ex-colleagues in there, financial coaches and financial counsellors in there. So I'd be really interested in what your thoughts, what's coming up for you at the moment. All right, let's move. Let's talk about shame, because, you know, when we talk about shame, we're looking at it from 2 different approaches, right? And the first is destructive shame. And I'm going to talk a little bit around this model that we're looking at here. Destructive shame really refers to when we have a thought, a behaviour or an emotion around money, we often, in and of ourselves even, not even from anyone else, but we might, you know, decide that we have some shame around that. And we could even shun ourselves over that shame. And we know this when we've talked in the financial counselling space and a lot of the work that we do with people, that it can be really tricky to actually get right to the bottom of what's going on, right? And we know that being shunned as a human being, being shunned by others is described by psychologists as the terror of abandonment, right? And so shame can be that fear of being shunned and the pain that comes through the fear of being shunned. And often then, as human beings, we will look for ways to soothe, right? And let me use an example here. Okay, so our nervous system actually reacts perfectly. it's meant to. A healthy nervous system is meant to soothe the pain that we're about to face. But with destructive shame, we often resort to unhealthy soothing mechanisms, unhealthy soothing behaviours to escape the pain of being shunned. And so often that can result in buying something. But here's the crazy thing, and I know that a lot of my ex-colleagues will have seen this as well. As hard as it's been finances, because I feel a lot of shame because my financial situation is really bad, I don't have anyone to talk to about it, so I'm going to go out and buy anyway. Right? How's this landing for people? When I learnt that because of my own situation, I was like, oh my goodness. Is that for real? Like I really was, and I could see myself doing that. How did I do that? I withdrew. We withdrew from connections. We withdrew from family. I had a greater shame because my background was banking. So I had a lot of that going on as well. So this is really interesting when we look at the difference between destructive shame and pro-social shame. And when we look at the approach of pro-social shame, if any of you know the 12-week programs, a lot of the addiction programs are based on this approach, right? And this is where we meet radical honesty. So we notice the behavior, we're radically honest with it. I notice I'm feeling shame about my money. I notice that, you know, all these things, even in the space where clients might be talking to you, they might be initially not talking about the money, but now you've built up so much rapport with them, they want to tell you everything about their money. When that radical honesty is met with acceptance and empathy for ourselves, we can actually do that for other people. And friends, that is the key to the space that you're sitting in right now. Whether you are a money-based program or whether you are supporting mental health, any other agency or approach, here's an opportunity when you've built so much rapport with the person that they want to talk about their money. We're going to go through and work out how you can actually do that in a supportive way so that they don't feel, and we don't feel, that they've gone out feeling, that they've been cast out of the tribe. It's a basic human need, that belonging and that connection. And, coming from a Pacific Island family, there was a lot of shame. We have to contribute. Actually, I should change that narrative. We were asked to contribute to a lot of family and external family things, which meant that they were priorities and we had to live off the shortfall. So again, when we think about worldviews, we all know that we're working in community services where we are working with people with different worldviews around money. And so the most important thing is that we firstly understand where our views are on money. That's pro-social. So that's what we're really focusing on. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just going through some of the chat things here. It's just amazing for the relief. Yeah, participants disclose what's happening without judgment, 100%. And sometimes, we all understand that sometimes we might be trying to protect our clients because we are uncomfortable ourselves in money. So, sometimes we might even avoid that conversation. Who's feeling this? Says, I'm feeling it. All right, so this is just the Dr. Anna Lemke. She writes a lot about this, destructive shame cycle. You can feel shunned and not included in the tribe. But in pro-social shame ladder, we get to feel accepted and show empathy in that space. And Anna writes, mutual honesty precludes shame and results in... Sorry, I'm so bad at this.
I was
and
just about to ask you, Tanga, if you were meant to be sharing your screen.
I'm just having this little party on myself on the side here, don't mind me. Rush of intimacy and connection and safety. Safety and connection are two of the core survival needs that we have here. And we're accepted despite our flaws. How's that landing? Right? I am imperfectly perfect. So when we are going into these conversations, you know, we're nodding, we're saying, yes, I'm hearing you. We don't need to try and fix anything. And I think that that piece can be really important for us as support workers. We're really just meeting their vulnerability with acceptance and empathy. I don't need to tell you that. You guys all work in this space. So we are very familiar with this. Okay, so we are going to go into a Mentimeter exercise because I know you want a break from my voice, even if it is just for a couple of seconds. So you can scan that QR code if you haven't already got the link and pop into the Mentimeter and just drop in there. Right, let me see. Let me see if I can make this available to you first. What are your top 3 feelings about having money conversations with, actually, let's go back one. What is my core unhelpful money belief? All right, so this is just a self-reflection. Your details don't...
Sorry, can you put the Mentimeter up a bit higher again so that Lil can get it on her phone? It's just not coming up on the screen at the moment.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, so
it should also be available in the chat.
Yes, it's in the chat as well if you're having trouble scanning it. So for those who haven't used this before, you use your smartphone and if you open the camera up, you should be able to scan that image and go to a link.
Yeah, you don't need to sign in or anything. It just brings it straight up.
Yeah, she's just having problems because of the reflection on the smaller one.
Ah, yeah, okay.
It's not working, is it?
Take your time. It's going to... We'll sit with this. So I'm just going to go through and read out some of the responses. So
if scanning doesn't work, you can also just go to menti.com and put in that number code.
Thanks, Stacey. My little brain just goes into this shut off thing, and this will make sense when we go through it a little bit later. But here we've got working hard equals money, laziness. Oh my goodness. That's, yes. Go on, Tanga, just keep going. Money is stressful, 100%. That I will never have or have enough savings, 100%. I'll catch up with payments. Yeah. Actually, I want to just delete. Can I delete that little thing there? Because that's in the way now. Oh, yeah. Only spend money on needs, never enough. You should know how to manage your money. Yeah. Yes. You know, these are powerful scripts and narratives that I'm really excited to be sharing with you some of where that's coming from and what our options are. And when we see these narratives and these scripts coming through, you know, when we put it in the context of hearing it from our clients, we're in the space of receiving their deepest shame. Otherwise, like me, they won't even go there. Can you... Oh, there's this AI thing in this thing where if I hit space, it actually sorts all the themes of the responses. Stop that. Ah, interesting. Yes.
Oh,
Money
wow, look at
management,
that.
inadequate savings. Yeah. Financial stress. This is amazing stuff. Oh, and by the way, too, this will also be provided to you afterwards. So I know I'm not doing the best job here. Hard work, yep, 100%. Immediate gratification, I need it now. Why am I getting excited? Because what I'm about to share with you over the next few slides might actually answer a lot of where this might be coming from. Financial security, needs versus wants, and the question there is who actually defines what a need is? Who's defined a need and a want? It's so subjective. You must save and budget regularly. Yes, yeah. Interesting narratives, and even the language that we use here. You must, you have to, rate of loans restricted me to start my own business. Did you hear that big breath in line? Because that triggers me, because that was me. Afraid of loans. Money is stressful and it is overarching through life. 100%. I'm feeling these. I'm really feeling these. Working hard. Excellent. All right. So because I have this tendency to just hang and want to chat, I'm going to please keep going with your responses in this. I am going to move on to the next slide because I need to be aware of our time. But I just want to say that I'm hearing you, I'm feeling you, I see you, and I appreciate that you are sharing this in this space as well. Okay, let's move. Who's had fun with that? Yeah, a little bit of fun. Okay. So what I wanted to show you is much of what most of us have already heard of, already seen, or already heard. It's the buzzword and a lot of the news things that we hear, financial trauma. And this is a list of, just the things that we know contribute as an individual in this space, right? What does that mean? Well, what it means is that these are directly impacting us as a result of money. So childhood poverty or financial distress for more than 3 months, unemployment, loss of assets, inability. So when we look at that list, it's very much us at an individual level, right? What we know, though, through the studies is that there is very much systemic influences that often have taken us to these places. And this is what we're going to cover in the next slide. I would like to invite you to think about some of these at a higher level. So we're going to go at a higher level. It's not stuff that you would really share with clients, but it's a really good idea to have this information sitting in the back of your head as your mind when you are working with people. And so what we're going to go into here is the 6 different layers of trauma. These are researched by the Faculty of the Trauma of Money. And I'm going to very quickly go through each of these just to give you an overarching view of what these could be, right? So most of us have heard of generational trauma, intergenerational trauma. What we know is whilst the previous list is directly related to traumas and things that are happening in our society, this is very much at a higher level. And we know that through the epigenetics and the study of epigenetics, that certain things like scarcity can have imprints on our DNA. Right. So if you've got a lineage of scarcity and survival, chances are it's been in your environment at some stage, and it could be something that you could be working with as well. It could be creating what we call a block that you won't even realize is happening, but that plays a major piece in there as well. Relational trauma is, when you're young and you knew all the 5 times tables, 7, 5, or 7, let's say 7, and you knew all your 5 times tables. You could sing it in the shower and it didn't matter. You just could rack it off so easily. But you were in the classroom the next day. Your teacher says, Tanga, get up and say your 5 times table. Right? I'm getting up, yeah, no worries, I can do that, that's easy. But then I look around and see 30 little pairs of eyes looking at me, right? And now my vision goes funk, right? I can't see anyone, my palms are sweating. This is actually what I go through before any presentation, would you believe? I still go through it. I go into this tunnel vision, and because I want to show and bring so much value, I go into this response, because I remember when I was young, an event when I stood up in class and I had to say something. It wasn't actually about money, it was about something else. But immediately I saw all these eyes, all this in my mind. Oh my God, they're looking at me, I look silly, you know, so all these narratives start going off. But we then plant this idea that I'm not good at money because I couldn't remember any of the five. I was so worried about what everyone was thinking, I couldn't remember the 5 times table. And there's this link between maths and money. So because I couldn't remember my 5 times table, it, you know, follows me as I'm getting older. I can't approach maths. I'm not good with maths. These narratives just layer on top of each other. And all of a sudden, I'm not good with my money. So you know what? When I'm partnered, I'll give it to my partner because he's better with. So you don't need to tell me about it. You just do it. I'm no good with it, right? So that's what relational trauma is. It's related to someone else, to an experience, to an institution. Some of us already also remember that our parents, our mums, might have struggled to get a loan. Like that's still in a lot of our memories, that when they went into the bank, the banking institution said, unless you've got a partner with you, we can't lend you. What? I've got enough income to do this on my own, right? So all of these are relational to another person, institution. Tanga, move along. You're hanging around too much. Okay, societal trauma. Now, this is societal trauma is related to the collective. So when we think about extractive capitalism, when we think about colonialism, where we know that, you know, the impact of a dominant society, that I've got to question some of the way my culture acts around money. You know, some of that can actually feed through on us as well. And consumerism, of course, we're heading on to the end of the year. We're already seeing all the ads coming on that say, okay, well, if you want to be happy and you want your children to be happy, how about you buy this truck? How about you get the latest thing out there, right? So this is where those collective traumas are sitting under. Systemic and social context, where I touched on it before as well, but it's where some areas of society are elevated over other areas, and other areas of community are marginalised. So that's more of a social context around that. Laws of nature. This is a really interesting one, and it comes back to understanding that there are multiple worldviews around money. And what sits under here is reciprocity, the laws of reciprocity. What does that mean? This is where the giving and receiving is not equal, right? And many of us can relate to this. We will give, but we are really a little bit shy about receiving, right? Even though someone wants to give us something or gift us something, there can be a little bit of a shyness around that as well. So that also extends to the idea that when you're on a wage and the industry is paying, let's say, $50 an hour, be small, $50 an hour for in that industry, and then you want to move into, now how many of us have even used the narrative, oh, I'm worth $50 now, $50 an hour, right? The law, under the laws of reciprocity, if you then move into, let's say, contracting or going out on your own in that same area, sometimes that can form a bit of a block, right? Because now we believe we struggle with asking for more, yet the transformation, yet all of the work that person is impacted by in the way that only you can deliver it, is the value is a lot higher. And notice financial literacy is in there as well. And I touched on it before, is financial literacy has had a very strong patriarchal narrative the way that we've been taught. And even just as we start to get a collective voice on there and start to look at some of the narratives that we have, in fact, when you go back to that list, when you see it come out, all of the contributions, a lot of it is linked to, you must do things this way and then you're good. And if you don't do it that way, then you're bad. Right. And it breaks down into those simple narratives that can drive us. I'm just going to do a stop share now and do a little bit of a pulse check with our team. How are we going?
Yeah, good. I think, Tana, there's not any further questions in the chat. I think we're traveling along okay. There was one thing I did ask, I did ponder on earlier, and that was when you were speaking about the different stages moving through that, you know, budgeting doesn't really come until quite you know, when you're through quite a bit of process. And I was imagining that when someone finally gets up the courage to approach you with money challenges that they're having, or even ourselves, we might have gotten ourselves into a spot of wanting to fix it straight away, and it may be difficult to actually get someone to stay in those initial stages for a while before they get to the budget and the fixing and the let's sort it all out. Is it sometimes difficult to get someone to stay in those phases and move through them before getting to the fixing stage?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you know, I've actually found that most people, by the time they come to get external help from someone like me, most of the time they've circled in multiple budgets. And the interesting thing there is the stats show, and you can Google this, that a study was taken back in 2016, over 40 to 50% of people, workers in Australia alone, it's higher in the States, in Australia alone, have failed at some sort of budgeting. Right. So the interesting thing is when you notice that, and there is a narrative that maybe, okay, maybe I need to have my accounts sitting in a certain way. And often if that's the presenting issue, it's important that we go to that place, because we need to then create the space where they feel safe. And if their safety is, how do I, you know, organize everything so that at least what's coming in now, while I'm going through the learning piece, I've got that structure in place. So that's a really good question. And any framework needs to be fluid enough to work with what's presenting at the time they come in the door or on the screen. Does that make sense? Good question. Love it. I've been observing this and wondered if it was an addiction. Bettina, that is a really good question. We are going to talk about that, because a lot of soothing mechanisms, which can be labeled addiction, it's really interesting that when we start to label it as a bad thing, so if we go back to that, if you do it this way, you're good. If you do it that way, many people don't talk about it because there's such a strong thing on that term addiction. There is a strong judgmental energy that comes with the word addiction. So that's a really good question, because it does come through a lot in soothing. I had a shopping soothing need. You know, I would catch myself out there shopping, and I continue to do so. But now I've got a way that I can, as soon as I'm in a cart, I'll create time and space between me and the cart. So really interesting, and it's a different approach again. We don't see that with people that just stick with budgeting. All right. Just a little bit of information too that I wanted to just bring on. And I know that a lot of us already are aware of these. And this is from Angela Glick, who is our mental health specialist that presents to us. You know, trauma can be many things: a single car, single incident experience. It could be a hurricane. We are experiencing global traumas at the moment. We've got ongoing things like living in a police state, where a person of colour might be struggling, someone that's been in an abusive relationship. And again, like I mentioned before, it can be inherited, like coming from traumatized lineage of people. And even in the womb, if you're available to that type of information as well. Childhood, if it's not unsafe, if it's unsafe. Who here has done ACE, the ACE checklist, or is anyone here familiar with ACE? I might share some information there, but it's really interesting when you go in, and it's just a free thing that you can access online. But it does give you an idea of some of these incidences that might be layering on for you. All right, how are we going for time? I know, Stacey, are we going to have a little break or something here somewhere?
We can absolutely have a break where you feel like it's a good time to break. We usually have about 5 minutes to go and make a cup of tea and go to the toilet, then come back. We're just about 10 minutes away from our halfway point. So I don't know if you want to keep going for another 10 minutes or if you'd like to break now.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Only because, you know, I really wanted to focus on this piece to be before we have a break, because when we come back, it's about the resourcing ourselves. All right. One of the questions that we like to ask in the trauma of money is when people talk about shame, is whose shame is this? And when you look at all the systemic examples that I've read out to you, what we want to do is really separate that shame from who you are as an individual, who I am as an individual, and then create space where we can go, that's interesting. When I was, you know, when I used to be a drinker, or when I, you know, you can start to really create that space where we understand, if I learn a little bit more, maybe I might understand why I'm soothing this way. For me, it was shopping, eating, alcohol, you know, like I had a laundry list of stuff, which is why I have so much passion in this space, because when we understand that these things are quite layered, there is an opportunity for us to start to go back and do some even internal healing. Here is the interesting thing about what happens to our brain when we are going into a trauma state, and why it's so important to understand this. Now, this model is Dr. Dan Siegel's model, right? And so if you hold up your hand with your fingers wrapped around your thumb, this model here represents your brain, right? So the fingers over your thumb, so your thumb is your midbrain, the emotional brain. Your fingers over the top and the fingernails are your prefrontal cortex. That's your problem-solving piece of your brain. That's the piece where you get to make executive decisions, some really thoughtful decisions. It's the piece where we get to forward think and forward plan, create all of these things sit within that piece of our brain. Now, the interesting thing, which really blew my mind, I thought, yes, I'm not losing it, is when we are in a triggered response, right? Whether you are aware of it or not. So I might have had a narrative from when I was a child and I've just buried it. My body's done a really good way of burying it. But when my body says, oh, you're about to go into we need you to survive and run or fight whatever's coming up. Figure 2 is what we call flipping your lid. That piece of your brain, the problem-solving piece of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, flips out, right? That means that I don't have access to a thinking brain. I have access to my survival brain, which could be I'm going to stand and fight and protect myself. I'm going to freeze and pretend that I'm not here. I'm going to run as fast as I can, or I'm going to fawn. I'm going to people please. I'm going to, you know, I love you, so good at this. I'm going to stay in this, you know, in this place, and because you're so good, yet you're feeling threatened by that person, right? So what happens is when that piece of our brain is gone and you're in a triggered state, you might be out there shopping to soothe. You might be out there trying to control someone else. You might be out there with a really bad, you know, temper, just biting at everyone, right? So for a child who flips their lid, you know, how many of us as parents have said, think about what you're doing? Right? I'm like, oh my God, I was such a bad mum. You know, I mean, this is the thing. Like, when we understand that it doesn't matter where we're from, it doesn't matter our background, our beliefs, our race. This is us, collective us, right? So I found that this model was really powerful and easy for us to understand. Here's the interesting thing: is I actually, when I used to work with Good Shepherd, see, my brain flips out too. I used to explain this to clients. You know, sometimes we'd go through a budget, and I remember a caller who said to me, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. You know, people tell me I can't remember. I just had that yesterday, right? And I was able to say, well, actually, your body's probably protecting you. Really? What do you mean? So we did this. It's such a simple model. How long did it take me to explain this to you? Right? That it makes sense for all of us. And so when we look at the trauma responses, we start to realize fight, self-preservation is in that too, anger outbursts, demanding perfection from others, stop it, Tanga, demeaning way of speaking to others, controlling others, you know, freeze, feeling unreal, brain fog, feeling spaced out. All of these things could point to a response. Obsessive compulsive tendencies. And I actually was surprised when I saw that under flight. Feelings of anxiety or panic, fawning, which hasn't really been that well known. I wasn't aware of it. Loss of self, people pleaser, codependent relationships, staying in violent relationship, little or no boundaries. So again, these things are going to be available to you in the printout. So what happens then when our brain flips out? Now, I'm going to explain this through the window of regulation. The reason why we do this, I've broken it up into a few slides because, you know, I'm not a specialist in this field. And so this is probably the easiest way for me to explain it as well. So when we talk about the window of regulation, every single one of us had this normal range where, you know, things get a little bit triggered. Let's use the example of driving to work. Get in the car, you know, had to do the drop-offs. Everyone's just getting there on time. Now you're in the car about to drive to your office and, you know, you're feeling okay, feeling under control. Someone cuts you off. All right, no, that's good. I can cope with that. I'm just not even going to give them any attention. I settle it, you know, I'm spiked again. Something else has gone off, but I've really managed to regulate that within a normal range. And because I'm human, that's going to be normal. The top part of that is where we're hyper aroused. And this is where we can have, you know, anger, fight tendencies, overwhelm, hypervigilant, which is interesting because that shows through in our money too, hypervigilant with where our bank statements, hostility, fight, flight, rage, sleeplessness sits in that space as well. And then the opposite side of that is what we call hypoarousal, which is the shutdown, the numbing, the depression. Now, because of where we are sitting and where we're all coming from, I'm only going to be talking about the window of regulation, but there are other approaches to this theory as well. So when we know that this is a standard range for us and, you know, we can spike to get angry, we can drop down and just like, I just want to withdraw. That's cool. So how do we keep ourselves maintained? Like if I start to feel myself triggered and angry, you know, sometimes some soothing and breath work and mindfulness, grounding in the present moment. And, you know, what we did at the beginning of this session was part of that. It doesn't have to be that long though. It just needs to be, and when I was on the phones, it was, okay, look, that was a lot you've gone through and I'm really sorry that you've had to go through that. Let's just pause now and let's just both take a breath, right? Count into 3, hold it there. And normally I might do just look over your shoulder, notice the 3 or 4 things. Notice my voice dropped a little bit as well. So a lot of that is to do with our polyvagal system, which is when a person is received despite their flaws and I'm giving them space and honouring them, they can feel safe in my space. And if you're feeling like you're about to shut down and you're disconnecting, now look, we're all going to do this at some stage, and that's cool. What I'm going to do is show you where sometimes we might need to resource ourselves outside of what we can do. So when we look at the same example of, going out on the road and driving, driving along, and I've already had a bad day. We've forgotten a few things at school, and then I had to rush home, and all this has happened. I've taken a few breaths and I'm okay. Now I've had all this bad news. Something's going on. We're going to have a meeting. Oh my gosh, that means I might be losing my job. Oh, the contract's not happening. Oh, this isn't, and so sometimes we might be sitting in these red areas or the red zones longer than what would be normal for us, right? I get angry. I get sad. This is where we give permission to feel the whole range of emotions. That is our human experience. We have emotions, we learn to work with them. They're great indicators of where we are. Where it can be a little bit challenging and where we would normally reach out and say, hey, this isn't usual for me. I've just spent 5 days in bed and I just can't get out. I'm so sad. And, this is where sometimes we can resource ourselves outside of. And the interesting thing with that is, stop this. There's a false sense of window of regulation. This is why I've taken that off. Because often we might go for a little dopamine hit and go for some shopping. I need to feel better. I need to get out of bed. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to feel good. And so because we are moving into that shame-driven shopping, that won't last. I'll get the shoes, it'll go into the closet with the other red pairs of shoes, and I still feel crap, right? And so those can be things that we start to ask ourselves and notice, is this normal for me? Do I need to talk to someone? Who can I reach out to? Promise, this is my last slide around this heaviness. And then we're going to do a little bit of a, okay. In the traditional financial psychology model, they really focus on the individual. And I had that list before as well. But we now understand that there are more systemic contributors to some of the challenges that we face with money. So the deeper imprints, such as systemics, issues that we highlighted, can often come through in these types of behaviours. So disorders, we know that we're talking about, are actually the secondary problem. Did I use the word problem? Challenge. Often the secondary challenge. What we see here are often the secondary challenge, but the primary issue is when we get to understand where that's coming from. And these that list here are from the teachings of Brad and Ted Klons, who are financial psychologists, most famously known in the US, because it's.
Oh, this is very. Are you meant to be sharing your screen?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
It's not shared.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, lovely. Yeah, so when we look at these different traumas, problems, behaviours, that's what I wanted to say. When we look at different behaviours and soothing behaviours, we now understand, well, actually, there might be more to this. I'm just going to go really briefly around the circle, starting with financial avoidance, is to lessen pain. It's an avoidance pattern. You know, we might be avoiding our bank statements. How many of my financial counselors here would have clients that come in with piles of unopened statements, right? Doing the taxes could be an avoidance. But the interesting thing is it actually has the opposite effect, because we have what we call a bandwidth tax, right? Bandwidth tax. Why would you use tax? Anyway, but the idea is when I know that there's something that needs my attention, I'm going to be feeling really stretched. And so when we've avoided anything, and I know this one well as well, is when you've done it, ping, all of a sudden, shoulders up, you're like, oh, so glad that's all done now. So glad that those things are all open. So that's where financial avoidance sits. Excessive risk aversion is really massive blocks against any form of investment. One of the shares earlier was around this, is the fear of even investing in some sort of education, even investing in some cultures and some areas of society overseas are what they call unbanked. Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, there could be some here in Australia, but what I do know is that there are lots of communities that won't bank their money. I know it's really difficult because a lot of employers demand that you have electronic bank account to send it to, but that's where, you know, there's been so much systemic oppression there that they don't trust anything. They keep things under the mattress, right? Unreasonable risk taking, and these two sit in the DSM-5 actually, is your hoarding and your gambling, and that is really more diagnostic as well, which there's a different theory around diagnoses and labeling yourself. So I'll go into that in a different space. Interesting, someone else shared this, workaholism. That's me as well. A sense of self comes from output from work, where that's actually connected to scarcity or pursuit of financial security. You know, working long hours. I'm only worthy of love through external doing. You get the adrenaline highs and the crashes and the burnouts. And that's actually what we call categorized as a money worshipping disorder as well. Financial rejection sits in the space of consciously or subconsciously rejecting money. And that comes back to some of the narratives that could come from, you know, rich people are greedy, you know, or you might be blocking reciprocity. You're rejecting some of what's been made available to you. So for a lot of us, we would recognize that. Overspending. This is more in relation to soothing behaviours when there's no affordability, really, when you're overspending and your basic needs are not being covered, and you spending to soothe pain. Sometimes you're trying to quiet the narratives of boredom, of feeling not good enough. And sometimes in that space, I will ask the question, when we look at that spending, what was the why of that buy? What was it that you were really looking to do? And sometimes on reflection, they won't know. But as we build that muscle, you get to do that self-intervention. And like myself, I'll catch myself, oh, what's the way of this buy, Tanya? What's going on? You know, make it a joke. It doesn't have to be hell, you know, like a really heavy thing. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Then I'll get all the emails saying, empty cart, let's bring it down by 10%. Right. See, I know the drill because I've seen it so often. But by that time, you've created time and space between you and the potential buy. All right. We have now come to a time where I'm happy if anyone wants to drop any questions or unmute yourself with any questions before we take a break. I know it's been heavy. I know there's a lot of stuff in there, and I would just invite you to whatever's coming up. Don't have to make sense, just whatever's coming up. Any reflections?
Lillian here from Goodna Anglican Welfare Ministries. We're just wondering how this impacts us as far as emergency relief is concerned. You know, we have clients who come in and are wanting help with bills to be paid. So how does this fit into our organisation?
Yeah, that is a great question, and it's key. It's a key place, because what it helps us to do is to understand that when we are working with people in crisis, that shame's probably the highest. And so how you respond to me, Lillian, like I remember when I was in Melbourne and we had to go and get food vouchers. The shame was so heavy, but the crisis lady that was sitting in front of me, she put her hand on my hand and she could see I was close to tears, and she said, everything's going to be fine. This is what we're going to do, right? And what that did was it diffused my panic and it helped me feel safe again, right? I give a lot to them now too, just because of that. And, you know, sometimes we really encourage you to understand that the place that you're in is so critical for that person. Maybe I only have 50 cents, but you are $50, but I came out of there feeling so valued, still a part of society, still able to contribute. You know, it's amazing, that opportunity. So I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it does make sense, because we have a lot of people who have been in your circumstances, and we do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, a smile, the touch of the hand is all very, very important. And it's good to see them going out with a smile on their face after we've actually helped them. So,
one of the other things, so Rachel here, sorry, jumping on board for both of us. One of the other things that is a concern and sort of being aware of, like putting these things into training to understand their perspective, but what we can help them in reverse to understand, to teach themselves to be better managers themselves for the funds, so that, you know, they're not repeating the processes.
Yeah, I really like that, because it's actually why I moved more into the behavioural science behind this. And, you know, where I was sitting was, I'm seeing the same people come through the system, right? I was going through the same system. I was starting to rack up debt again. And the shame came on. Why was it, you know, all this stuff and you know it again? And the debt starting to, and that's why I knew I needed to go deeper. And so when we want to really create massive change, it is often going to be those small moments that really can be pivotal for people in that connection. Does that make sense? And so I'll go through towards the end of our session. I've actually got a model of what a normal framework for most of our programs would look like, and where we can bring in a lot of this, you know, co-regulating, which is really important for you, because most of them are not going to really pay attention or even understand how to stick to a budget if they're just in the fight, flight or freeze or fawn space. Do we have any other thoughts, reflections? I need caffeine.
Just that one there from Rebecca saying it's great to reflect on shame. We can never underestimate how deeply this affects people.
Oh, Beck, yeah, 100%. It's just a word we seem to throw around, and we haven't really taken the time, or maybe we're so busy we forget how deep that is in our system. Good thought. All right.
And I was just going to say, Tanga, it is good, you know, when we've got someone sitting in front of us, just to take a minute to acknowledge that and recognise that, as you say, not rushing straight into the budget to get that done. We need we need to see them from where they come from, and to really take a moment to respect how hard it is for them to share their story.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was challenged a lot with is the squeeze on services. I know that a lot of you would be nodding to this. That squeeze, time and space is what these clients need, but when we are squeezed on resources, that can be really challenging to get that balance. And so that impacts our system. We start to feel panicked, right? And it just has that, flow-on effect. All right, are we ready for a break? Shall we see you all back? Thank you. Thank you so much for holding space here. We will see you back in about 5 minutes. I'm just going on 15:15, so about 20 past.
Yep, if we come back at 20 past, I'll see you all then.
Yay, see you then. Oh, those are two faces I know. Hi. Hey, Catherine, are you back? Oh, where are you guys now?
I'm at Good Shepherd.
Really?
I know, right?
Oh.
Managed to convince her to come over. I was at Variety, the children's charity.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and then
wait, where is that? Looks like, no, maybe she's back at UCQ.
No. And so I was working with Kylie.
Oh, it's Kylie still there?
Yeah, Kylie's still at Variety, but they had to cancel the financial counselling program because they didn't get funding.
Oh.
So I started here last week.
Oh.
Funny, hey. Are you still at Paradise Point?
No, we've come up to Brisbane now.
Oh, because I moved to Paradise Point.
You're kidding. Whereabouts?
No.
We still like coming down a lot. We were right opposite the shops, and
I'm at Akram Island.
Oh, across the bridge.
Love it. Kylie often asked after you. I'll let her know.
Yes, please.
Let
her know to jump on sometime. Would love to.
Yeah, will do.
Oh my goodness.
Gang's getting back together.
Hey?
The gang's getting back together.
I know. That umbilical cord's pretty strong.
It sure is, right?
Love it. Felicity, are you at Good Shepherd as well?
Yes, I am. And sorry I was late. My link didn't come through and I thought this was at 12, so my apologies. But yes, I'm at Good Shepherd as well.
Whereabouts?
I'm with the QFRP based at Southport.
She's with Catherine and I.
With Catherine and Nicole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know someone's based out at Nerang Neighbourhood Centre too.
Yeah,
but I think she's capabilities. Yeah. Sorry, everyone. Just having our own little corner chat here.
I think it's a degree of separation.
Yeah. Oh, it's so shocking, that link here, and especially in financial counselling capabilities space, right? Love it. How are we going for time? Should I get into it, because we know now how off track I get? Oakley dokley. Okay. Nice and topped up and emptied and good to go. So we're going to now just over the next few sessions, over the next few minutes that we have together, talk about developing that skill of co-regulating. You know, there's pretty flash ways to define this, but it's just natural stuff for many of us. We haven't labelled it, right? So some of you could be sitting there going, oh, yeah, I do that. And that's good. Sometimes it's creating that awareness that there are some unique skills that you bring to this table. We've talked about financial disorders, so I don't know why I've got that in there second. So we might even have a quicker session this half, and really focusing on resourcing ourselves and our community members. What does that even mean? It's really interesting because I'm going through and doing this, and all my notes from the PowerPoint have just seemed to have disappeared. Anyway, so when we talk about resourcing, and we were talking about this before, Linny, and we were talking about how, you know, people come down and they need to resource themselves, and, you know, crisis services. Often that can be, you know, driven by survival, you know, as a trauma response, survival. And it's real. You know, for most of the people we work with, it's real. I don't have the capacity to be covering my basic needs. And this can be, you know, the idea of resourcing ourselves in a survival state can be even seen as gambling, people pleasing, dissociation, drug use, right? So in this space, we don't label them as good or bad. Comes back to the financial literacy, you know, it is a view, it is a perspective, and we have the opportunity to decide whether that's going to continue or not. And so what we really would like to do is to really build those creative resources, the resources where we get to work out what is it that I'm really needing to soothe, what is it I'm really needing. And so for me, in the case of the spending and being in the cart to buy something, I get to create space, put that down and say, what is it? What is it that I need? Have I just had an argument with someone? Has someone just really triggered me? Am I bored? You know, and we really get to look at that with curiosity and then look at ways that we can self-soothe without harm. Sometimes we would need to reach out to other outside sources like community services, like doctors, like all of the things that we would have in our little toolbox that we can share with our clients to help them when they recognise that. I guess the thing that's most underestimated in the roles that we play is how much psycho-ed we give our clients and we share. Like it's almost like, one coach really described this well for me is, Tanga, you're the one that sits there and reads everything and digests all of that information. And then the role is to filter that down into smaller digestible ways for our people that we're working with so that they can cope with it. They don't want to be spending all this time. Right. So if we get to share these resources, that's part of them moving out of whatever it looks like stuck for them. Now, what's coming up for you now? What sorts of resources do you normally tap into that are within yourself to help you in that window of regulation? This is a Mentimeter exercise for you to share. So if you pop back into, let me see if I can bring it up. Open that out. Trying to navigate these screens is really tricky. There we go. And share with us here, what creative resources do you use to access your window of regulation? Now, all you're doing is you're labeling it. What sorts of things would you... And also, what comes to mind that you do in a conversation with a client that you can hear and you can feel and you can sense is dysregulated? What sorts of activities are at your fingertips? Time alone. Yeah. Away from the noise. And this can be quite a number of different things. Revert to hiding or sleep. Clients totally different, can discuss. Yes, yeah. Going for a walk, absolutely. That energetic movement, I'm loving that. Notice the walks that will be coming up. And, walking is a lot more acceptable now, whereas before it was like, you should be running, right? But the walk is sustainable, it's fun, you get time to notice your environment. Cup of tea time, 100%. Get outside. Interesting thing there. I'm going to just bring something up after we go through the sunlight. Notice some themes that are coming up in these. Go look at the water, running. Yes, a funny video. I love that. Yes, that's my husband's go-to. It's just have get fun and time in nature, get into nature. Hot shower, water immersion. Yes, yeah, nice bath. Yoga, one of my favourite. I've just had a double mastectomy about beginning of August. My cancer came back and I'm starting to get back into my yoga. I'm able to do my stretches again now. So I really miss that. So just even finding the things, oh yes, pets, beautiful dogs, swimming, all of those things. Amazing. Love it. Let's look at some of the space and let's let the AI do its thing. What themes have we got going on here? Physical activity and nature. Right up there, alone time, social connection, call a friend, yes, yeah, 100%. Keep adding in there. And so what I wanted to share with you was this really quick technique is often when we're feeling like we want to go in because we're feeling shame, stressed, one of the most immediate things available to us, and we've touched on it here, is the ability to look up. Look up and widen that view, come out of that tunnel of scarcity, of shame. And when we open that and we look around nature, it's just straight away, right? And that works through this polyvagal theory. I'm not going to go into that, but, it does that. Seeing each other, connecting with each other's faces and a smile connection, so important. A lot of my group sessions, I'll actually start with everyone just looking into the camera at each other and really acknowledging each other. I see you, I feel you, I hear you. Powerful. All right. Moving along. Any thoughts, anything, running, breathing, exercise, breath work, straight away. Yes, 100%. DPT therapy, yes, something to distract, 100%. Sometimes that's just to go back and notice, oh, body, you're feeling triggered, and even just noticing that and not ignoring it like Tanga used to do in the day and push it down. Yes, you lost the screen. That's okay, darling. So what do? I have to find that screen. All right. Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah. So
there we go.
We got that. So now let's move into and coming back to the original question of how do we apply this? When does this even come into our practice? Now, would you agree that most of our programs, or if we're working with someone, we might tend to go through these phases, the welcome and comfort, where so people can feel safe and ready, and you establish rapport, what's brought you here, what's happening for you today. Then we go through and explain our process so that the clients can feel understood and feel secure about what they're coming into. So would all of these things sort of resonate with the type of program that you're in? Yes? No? Maybe? A little bit? Just go, yes, yeah, we're nodding. You're nodding. Good. All right. So where do you think, drop it in the chat, where do you think it would be best to add your co-regulating piece into what you normally do? And it's a trick question.
I think most probably after you've identified their needs. So then we process from that point and do all the background information in our heads to be able to give them the best response.
Yeah, perfect. Love that. Ali, almost from the beginning. Yep. Kerry, anytime. Spot on. Throughout. Yes, Cherie. Throughout and ongoing. 100%. As intuitive workers in this space, because we are attracted, there's the type of people that are attracted to the space. And this is why it's so important for you to also receive support. We are constantly, at any stage, co-regulating with the clients. Okay, so can you, and what happens when they're telling this story, right? What's happening to our clients when they are retelling a story as to why they're reaching out to us? They're going to be triggered, right? Understand how they feel. Yes, sorry, the client understands and feels secure. So literally, intuitively, you might fall into that piece. And I mentioned before, you know, there's multiple clients I've spoken to on the phone where I will just stop the process and just say, oh, let's just take a moment out of this place right now and let's just breathe together. And you're giving them permission. You are, I hear you, I feel you, energetic exchange. And more than anything, this is our brain. Right now, if I'm going to be asking them critical questions that require critical thinking, they're flipped out. They've just told me a story about all of the stuff that they've gone through, and their executive brain is not available to them, right? So, oh, let's go in and do your budget, right? So banks and anyone they call to, well, you just need to get more stricter with your budget. My brain's flipped out right now, right? And so that moment in time is you. That's where you, as the person that they are sharing with, has that ability, and also within the boundaries of your agency. Let's just bring that in. You are funded through a program, so have this discussion with your programs. Hey, you know, Tanga's been talking about this sort of stuff. What do we have boundaries? Can we go into a breathwork? What are the, you know, potential? So bring that out in your group discussions. What would be natural? You might already be doing it anyway. And so what I would do, and the powerful thing I found was with a particular lady who was going through, and she kept saying, that's why I'm so done. I'm done. I can't think of those things. I just spent money yesterday and I can't remember. And then I would say, well, actually, would you mind if I share with you what your body could be doing? And that part of your brain might be, what do you mean? What do you mean? So I said, hold your fist up. I can't see her. We're on a phone. Have you got your fist? Are you holding that up? Right. So this is what's happening. Your fingers are over your thumb. That's gone out. That's your thinking brain. You're in survival right now. And I get that. Right. So let's just do a bit of breath work. We'll just bring it back in. And you know, the cool thing was when we returned to the budget, she was like, oh yeah, that's right. I spent $50. We went out to do this and I did that. And, you know, and you can feel it. Trust your instinct. I just look at the screen and I can tell there's a lot of instinctive people here. Trust it. You'll feel it. You'll feel when time out is a moment in that call, and then allow you to move to the next step very quickly with the information that you need. Now, here's the thing. If you've got someone that's talking about, I'm going to come off sharing. If you've got someone who's talking about things that you have no idea around, when, you know, I've got debt coming out, I've got phone calls from creditors, I've got all this going on, you know, just hearing and receiving that information and then having your referrals in place. This is where your referral information is really useful. They might be needing food right now, which would then be appropriate to refer to a crisis centre. They might have all of the debt right now that they have got creditors on their doorstep, and that would be a financial counselling space. Just let me know, financial counselling colleagues here or ex-colleagues, just drop in there if there might be anything else that you can think of. But we're not there, and it's not part of the program. It's outside of the boundaries of the program to take them through anything else. One of the things that used to freak me out was when I was connected to a gambling counselling space. Our counsellors were starting to do budgets with people because that was such a big block for a lot of their clients. And so it was really important to have that conversation that actually if you do a really soft referral to, a capabilities program or one of us in financial counselling, you can move that client to the next step while still being in contact. So, give yourself permission that as a program, you're going to have boundaries, right? And it's really not going to be appropriate to go into budgeting with them. It's not, because what happens then is you bring your lens into that. We go into a fixing space, right? And I know that we can't help that because it's the type of people we are. We just want to take the pain away. Yeah. Re-traumatizing, re-experiencing. Yeah. 100%. And it really hurts to know that that can be happening because you're not aware that that can, come through as re-traumatizing. But that's my stuff. All right. So we've talked about resourcing. Okay, so what I've done, I'm so sorry, that's bright. That's very bright. All right, so what I've done is I've just put together some questions that might be useful. I might get rid of, oh man. And for different things. So what do you feel in your body now? And that can help clients to become aware of the physical sensations that are linked to their emotions. And sometimes a nice quick grounding exercise might be, mindful breathing. You might even ask the client, what do you think you might need right now? What makes you feel safe and calm? And it just encourages the client to build that self-agency. Listening to calming music. So this is going to be available for you as well, just as some trigger questions that might give you some ideas. You might not even use the wording there, and that's cool. It's just letting you, access some resources that I've found useful when I've worked with coaching clients so they can build their own agency. What are your goals? So the interesting thing, and I wasn't sure about putting in the thinking about the future. Let me share. Because often when you're in a trauma space and that part of your brain's flipped out, you won't have access to that future planning space, right? And so maybe that call is only call for a crisis support and then move them to the appropriate referrals. So give yourself permission to understand, okay, well, this particular service is not quite right now. You wouldn't say that to the client, but in your mind, and then provide the relevant referral in that moment, in that space for where they are then. Any thoughts about some of those questions? Anything stick out for you? We're actually doing well for time. No. Good start.
Hey, Tonga.
Yeah.
I just want to say I like the way you're integrating the flip the lid in the conversation. Like you've explained what it is, but you're also introducing it and how you use it within sessions. I think that's really valuable. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I mean, I think that's probably the thing. Like often when we're learning stuff, it's out there. But the way that I've presented, you wouldn't do that with anyone. It's just because of the level that you as practitioners are, that you would need to have a little bit more understanding below that. So for a client that just needs to come out of that trauma space, little psycho-ed moments like this can be really useful.
Tada, the list that you've got on screen now is very handy from our own personal. But when we actually see our clients, some of them are going through DV, some of them have got gambling issues, some have got anxiety disorders. Is this something that we would be able to hand out to our clients? Is it free range to do that?
Yeah, well, I think that's where at your discretion and what you think is going to be safe, because sometimes these types of questions might be cause a re-traumatise without you even realising it. And sometimes in those situations, the referral to the gambling helpline or, gambling help counsellor or some service that's going to then be able to walk through these with the client, with them there.
Yeah.
And they have the skills.
Situations.
Sorry, I spoke over you then.
Yeah, no, sorry. Just evaluating in each situation.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, when we think about the skill of being able to contain that conversation, that's experience. That's hard. That's experience, because now you've built a rapport with this person. They only trust you.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But understand also that they trust you for the guidance, not so much the answer.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it's difficult too, because sometimes it may not necessarily be anything that is a disorder for themselves or a disadvantage like gambling or whatever. You know, we do have the DV people, but we do have a lot who have that shame because they are doing okay, but the outside forces like energetics or the rental crisis and all of that is impacting on their having to come and ask for assistance.
Yes. And I think that's where how we place those resources and how we put that into context, this will be able to just bridge you to the next step. But right now, a financial counsellor is going to be the best person to speak to, right? So those immediate resources are only funded for crisis, right? And so when we can move them on to find out what the bigger picture is, you know, those other services are skilled to go into those deeper conversations.
Tega, I'm not sure about the other agencies, but we do a lot of face-to-face interviews. So, you know, we're usually pretty full on with our clients, and we have a lot of clients that keep coming back to us, and because they know who we are. And, you know, they're always happy when they leave. So, you know, I mean, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but, you know, this is going to be, I think, a really good working tool for us to add to what we already do. So yes, thank you for that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, my heart's full. Oh, take a breath, Tanga. Thank you so much. It's amazing. Okay, so remember, just reminding you, we're sitting here. All that work we've talked about is at the front end. Is, you know, when we go into the deeper work, we teach the skills around maintaining that window of resilience or regulation. And we even get to the point where I can stop and say to the client, okay, what are you feeling in your body right now? Right. Visioning, again, we don't have access to that part of our brain right now. We're flipped out. We're just in survival mode. We're just in, you know, basic needs, roof over our head, food on the table, basic connections. And so when I can now start to feel safe, I can move into, I used to say to people, go and do your spending diary, and I wouldn't see them for months, right? And the only reason why was one of my clients came back, she said, I panicked when you said do a spending diary. I flipped out that you were going to judge me and stop me, and it was going to be the last time I could spend the way I wanted to spend. Interesting, right? And so in that grounding space, don't underestimate the power of that piece. Harmonizing is often around, you know, getting congruent. I think one of the shares earlier today was, you know, I really want to earn a higher income, but I can't get this something blocking you there that might be keeping you safe. So that can even be a triggered response at the moment, because the body's going, oh, we know that the income at this level is safe. We know it, it's safe, it's crap. I'm still struggling, but at least we know it, right? So now if I'm going to go outside of that and go higher, sometimes we go into a triggered response to keep us in that safe container. And we see that in a lot of business people that push up into higher income brackets. How many of us say, I've like quadrupled my income and I'm as broke, if not more broke than I was when I first increased my income? You know, those are really good indicators. That was me. And then the budgeting is quite a bit later in the phase, even though that might be a tool that we pull out at the beginning, knowing that we've gone given at least a little bit of regulation education there. And refinement is, how do we review this? And this speaks to the whole idea of over vigilant with our numbers. Sometimes there is a piece that I'm so attached to those numbers. I check my bank account every day, or I check everything every day. And there could be something there, you know, to explore, to invite you to explore, because actually you probably only really need to review it once a month. Right. And I can see a few eyes going, really? Are you still up there? What's going on? But it is possible when we start to look at what drives us in that money literacy space, what's driving the activities that I'm doing or not doing or overdoing. And so there's invitation to learn deeper.
Maybe tripling your income gives people the opportunity to say, well, okay, I'm going to go and spend some of that money that I couldn't spend prior to having that 3 extra amounts of income.
Yeah. How many of us ex-bankers have had people who have won Tats Lotto and within a year they're broke? You know, it's like, it's not the money, it's not the numbers. I can wholeheartedly say there's often, when it's cycling for someone, where it's a behavioural change, similar to like where it's behavioural, maybe it is just service level budget. But where you've got signs of recycling and recycling, you've seen the same thing, and I'm just like, are you serious? I'm relying on debt again. What's going on? What's going on? Judgment, shame, judgment, shame. So, you know, that's where you can question, okay, what's happening here? What's available to me to learn about? Yes, Andrea, the slides, you're going to get a copy of all these slides. Oh, thanks, Stacey. It's meeting slow again. All right. So I went to start doing all these links, and that's all I could come up with initially, because I think sometimes in our agencies we can be over-referring. There is such a thing as over-referring, and what I mean by that is find the most appropriate one in that moment, trusting that that one is going to open the doors to the next step. Right. The number of times I would speak to someone who's come through the agent or, you know, the call line 3 or 4 times. Oh, how did you go with those referrals that you were sent? Oh, there were so many, I didn't know where to start. One thing, right? Maybe even 2 things. That's it. Keep it simple. And with financial, the National Debt Helpline, Money Smart is an amazing resource, but you can get lost in it if you don't have a specific reason you're going there. So I often find that the NDH one is where it's, you know, debt specific, or you've got phone calls for creditors. That's all you need, because when you go into that site, the amazing amount of resources available is huge. So just encourage that one step. What's your next step? Oh, did I have another Mentimeter thing? Oh, maybe.
Just a quick question from Lillian Tunga is, are those referrals free for clients?
To the financial counsellors? 100%. Yes. And there's, unless financial counsellors...
No, it's for the clients that come in to see us. Are they free for the clients to be able to ring up and say, I'm having trouble with finances, and you know, is there somewhere you can refer me to? Or we can say to them, look, we can refer you to this place. Are they free for clients? For our clients, not us.
Yes, yeah. So do you mean for the National Debt Helpline and the financial counsellors?
For the people that actually come in and say, here's my bill, haven't got any money, and you can see that they have got a good amount of money coming in, but they don't know what to do with it. So it's sort of like budget financing, and we send our people through to Anglicare, but it's always good to have an extra couple of referral places that we could send them to if they're not happy going to Anglicare. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It does. And can I ask any of my financial counsellors here to jump on there? Anyone want to answer that for me?
Yeah, the National Debt Helpline. You can also refer them to Good Shepherd. We have financial resilience workers that can help with budgeting as well. And it's all free, funded by the government.
And if you jump on the Financial Counsellors of Australia website, they can give you the members' details, so all the organisations that provide those services.
Thank you.
And the national, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say the National Debt Helpline will locate the nearest service, whatever agency it is, to the client as well, and they've got a comprehensive list. So it's not just for internal bookings. They also refer, while they can't book direct, they refer to the other organisations as well. So it's to the greatest benefit of the client, whoever's nearest.
Thank you.
And there's a map on the site that you can find one yourself if you want to say, hey, there's one in this town or this area.
Thank you for that, ladies.
Love it. Love it. I think the interesting thing too is there's no income threshold, there's no citizenship requirement, there's no, it's open to everyone, unlike many services that might say, well, you have to have a healthcare card. Anyone can access it. There's also, through that bit also mentioned too, is there's a small business one as well now. So a lot of those referrals will be made available to you just by contacting the National Debt Helpline. Okay, would you agree we've covered a lot today? Amazing.
So all these chats that are on here at the moment, I haven't linked in on Teams through here for the WebEx because I'm up here with Lil. Am I going to have access to that chat, or should I join now just to have access to that chat for all these links? Or will they be provided in a quick chat, email or something through of all the conversations?
Good question. I'm not sure whether or not you would be able to access the chat afterwards if you haven't actually joined Teams. However, the links that we have shared in the chat here, I think they are actually included in Tanga's PowerPoint, which you will be receiving.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, let's just do a quick review at how amazing 2 hours can be. Right, we've developed an understanding of those 6 researched influences around systemic traumas. We've got a basic understanding of the window of tolerance. Basic, Justin, that's all we need, really. It doesn't need to be therapeutic. It doesn't need to go anywhere else. Those are just skills. With understanding how our brain, access to our brain works, and why someone just saying go do a budget isn't often useful if you're in a triggered response. Developing the skill of co-regulating, and that space that you hold for your clients is powerful. We've got that. We've had the overview of financial disorders and how they might be turning up. I know that was really quick. In different money financial spaces, I would normally go into a lot more detail with those, but we just need enough information for our roles. And we've also now got some of the resources that you can tap in and use and implement into what you're already doing. And that's me. You're going to have that as part of the slide copy. My link tree, you can take a photo of me, you can contact me. And I would absolutely love to connect with you, get some real feedback. Because this is something that I really like to take to larger organisations and to banks and financial institutions as well, particularly in their hardship lines where they're working, it's going to escalate. We know that. We know that's coming. So.
Thank you so much, Tanga. Really practical information and things, lots of things there for many of us to take and find out a little bit more about too. And I know you do a lot of work in this space, so lots of opportunity to find out more. We are going to launch a poll on your screen so you can let us know how you found the session. Given how many of you registered for this session and attended today, we know that this is a really hot topic. And it's something that many of you would like to find out some more information about in the new year. So we will absolutely be keeping that in mind as we design our sector development program for 2024. We do have many events, exciting events and workshops for you to participate in the new year. One of the things that you in your organisations may find useful is a webinar we're holding tomorrow around the not-for-profit sector and the use of digital technology. If that is something that you would find interesting, we will be holding a webinar with Info Exchange tomorrow to go over the report that they've just made live at about midday today, well, just about now actually. They've made live, they've just launched their report into the use of digital technology in the not-for-profit sector for this year, which holds some great insights into growth and development areas for our organisations in the new year. QCOS continues to do, we'll be sending out that information in your post-event email. QCOS does continue to do a lot of work in the cost of living space and advocacy related to cost of living. If you're interested in joining us, we will be providing information in the post-event email for you to keep up to date on the kinds of things that we're working on and the ways that you can all be involved, both at an individual level and at an organisational level in the work that QCOS does. There's many, many ways for you to be involved in the work that we do. Some of you will have heard of the Town of Nowhere campaign or the Raise the Age campaign. We have quite a few different ways for you to, depending on what your interest area is and where your passion is, to be involved in our work at QCOS. So we look forward to seeing you again. We hope you found today really useful, and yeah, we really hope to see you on our screens again at an event somewhere near you very soon. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Stacey.
Thank you, Tanga, very much for all of your insights.
Thank you.